More fun than scooping the cat's litter box or fixing that long-neglected toilet that's been hissing in your bathroom. This is the Daniel Natal Show. In our last video, we explored the concept of ethics as a mental model. Just to recap, I equated ethical training to an equation that you can plug different situations into, and it'll give you the right answer every time. Etiquette, I said, was a list of specific situations you're expected to memorize. But if something's not on that list, you're lost. Think of it this way. Is it easier to know a single calculus equation to be able to measure the heights of different buildings using their shadows, or would you rather memorize a 10,000-page directory of all the heights of buildings around the world? Which is more efficient? Which is more effective? Think of ethics as the equation. Think of etiquette as memorization. In one, you're taught to understand, whereas in the other, you're just trained to memorize. Toward expanding that understanding, I began the last video talking about the difference between ethical behavior and utilitarian behavior. I put together a brief video expanding on that distinction. Take a look here. What is utilitarian behavior? Utilitarian behavior consists of doing the advantageous thing instead of the right thing. According to the philosopher Immanuel Kant, it's summed up by the idea that the ends justify the means. Illustrative of this mindset was the Spartan tyrant Lysander, of whom Plutarch wrote, Lysander, who was a clever quibbler and given to employing cunning deceptions to further most of his designs, counted justice as mere expediency, and honor as that which is advantageous. He said that truth is better than falsehood, but that the worth and value of either is determined by the use to which it is put. Plutarch adds, when others censured him about his violation of his oaths which he had made in Miletus, he said that one must trick children with jacks, but men with oaths. Note how to the utilitarian man, oaths, promises, and commitments were seen as jokes. But stepping outside of antiquity and looking at our more immediate world, utilitarian thinking is still very much alive and well today. Sadly, it's even being taught at universities. Remember, to the utilitarian person, the ends justify the means, so they're always concerned with outcomes over ethics. One of the most conspicuous forms of this thinking is an outcome-based equality currently being designated as equity by colleges around the country. In equality, everybody is treated the same. In equity, however, people are treated differently, so long as they're all equal at the end. This manner of thinking is touched upon in the textbook Teaching the Ethical Foundations of Economics. In it, we read, people who emphasize outcomes, utilitarian thinking, tend to see economic inequality as morally wrong. People who emphasize process are more likely to approve the results of a system, even if the results are highly unequal, provided the individuals have equal opportunity to succeed. Aristotle denounced equity, saying that it was highly unjust to treat two people the same if one worked much harder than the other. To reward them equally for unequal labor is an act of injustice. Note how in the equity system, based on a foundation of utilitarianism, a box is taken from one person so that someone else can have two. To the utilitarian man, this act of inequality, this violation of the rights of one person, is justified because the end justifies the means. And if the goal is equality on the back end, then who cares how many people's rights you have to violate to achieve a result you consider desirable? This habit of social engineering is mentioned in the book Nudge by Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein. They have a footnote in the book which says, Kammerer calls for asymmetric paternalism, which he defines as taking steps to help the least sophisticated people while imposing minimal harm on everyone else. Note the usage of the term harm in the quote. They're very well aware that their system harms others, but it's justified by saying it's only minimal harm. And another walk of life where we see this play out is the field of law enforcement. In the book Police Ethics by Tom Barker, he talks about certain police officers abandoning ethics for utilitarian behavior and what is called noble cause injustice. This consists of bending the rules to get the bad guys, whether it's roughing up a suspect, planting evidence on someone to frame them, or lying under oath in court. It's all justified by saying it's to get the bad guys. Tom Barker laments the fact that people of a utilitarian bent think that good can come from evil. In the end, utilitarian behavior is all about cutting corners, ignoring the means, the process, and leapfrogging to the end. Utilitarian thinking is lazy thinking. It's the assertion that you can engage in all sorts of inherently unethical behaviors, so long as you tell yourself that the end justifies the means. You will always be able to discern ethical behavior from utilitarian behavior when you see if the process is emphasized or the end. In the Code of Ethics for Journalism, for instance, the means are emphasized, not the end. One of the lines is, quote, "It is important to pursue truth, no matter what the consequences," end quote. This indifference to consequences is a tip-off that it's ethical. The emphasis is not on the end, but the means. Truth is more important for its own sake than any consequence that may radiate from that truth. An ethical person will always gravitate more towards the truth, towards the process, than towards a perceived end goal. It is right in and of itself, without any reference to a desirable objective. The utilitarian person, by contrast, will always skip over these crucial middle steps and cut to the end, violating all intervening rules and principles if he thinks he's doing something advantageous to himself. The establishment media is doing everything possible to make sure that you don't hear some of the most important voices out there on medicine, science, politics, business, media, and so much more. That's why it's so important that you check out the new American show, Conversations That Matter, with Alex Newman, which tackles all of these topics and more.